First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to talk my kids into forgiving their dad? My kid's dad and I were married for a decade. He cheated on me multiple times and ended up leaving me for one of the women. This all came out during our anniversary party, which he actively helped me to plan. He went home with her that night and our marriage was over. I was heartbroken, angry, humiliated. Worse still was people in his life knew about it. His younger brother and two of his friends were actively encouraging it and laughing behind my back, and he was joining them. Finding it all out was hard, but our kids never heard it from me what happened. I learned how to fake a smile and be civil, and I learned how to keep a distance without tension or bringing my kids into it. He and his wife treated the kids well, and I tried to focus on that while my kids were around so they would never know. I have healed, but there will always be some anger there. Not because of the cheating exactly, but the way he treated me. Allowing me to believe things were fine, while laughing behind my back with his buddies to humiliate me when we were supposed to be celebrating a milestone with our friends and family. And even afterwards, he wasn't exactly kind to me. My kids and I always had a good relationship, and this seems to have bothered my ex's wife, who, they were never very close, and she started drinking a few years ago. All the kids are grown now, so it wasn't a huge concern to me. But a few weeks ago, she seemingly decided to rant and rave at the kids, revealing the affair and saying they treated her unfairly. The kids are mad at their dad and her. My ex came and asked me to talk to them and convince them to forgive him. I refused. He claimed I was an A and putting my feelings above theirs. But in reality, we have talked. I have told them they should not put my feelings into this, but I won't tell them not to be mad. They know more than I ever would have wanted them to know, even if I had chosen to tell them myself, which I never did. I didn't want to burden them or make them feel like they had to pick sides. I wanted them to have a healthy childhood. Am I the a-hole if I don't encourage them to forgive their dad? I know my ex is mostly worried he won't get to be grandfather to our first grandchild if the kids cut him off. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole at all. Kids learned this from his new wife and he wants you to tell them how to feel? That is a special kind of stupid. Worst thing is, he doesn't even seem mad at her, just me. It's like they blame me for her telling them. It's dumb. Info. Do they know everything by now? The full story? Or just some incomplete version? They know everything. Then he should realize that his kids hate him for 1. Him cheating on their mother. 2. Him treating their mother like crap. 3. Him running away with his mistress in such a public way. 4. You still being kind enough to them and sparing them the details, and also not making him look like a douche, which he didn't deserve. It's one thing you not telling them, so not to poison them or whatever, but him to not have owned up to it. Yeah, big man cheats on his wife and laughs about it, but can't take responsibility even so many years later? They have every right to be mad at him, and he has to take it like a man and suck up to those kids as much as he can. Not the a-hole. You behaved really admirably here, and your kids can see that. Everyone's living with the consequences of their actions. I tried. It was not easy, especially dealing with their dad and his wife. But my kids were so young and struggled enough with a divorce. I could never have hurt them more by telling them what happened. Not the a-hole. Your kids are their own people. They'll forgive him in their own time. Or not. He made his bed and now he has to lie on it. Exactly. They are all grown with their lives. They will decide in their own time and in their own way. Now for the second story. Will I be the a-hole if I uninvite my dad and stepmom to my wedding after finding out they cheated 20 years ago? I'm engaged, getting married in February. Recently, my fiancé and I were at dinner with my stepsisters. Their mom remarried my dad when we were young and we were really close. I don't really even see them as stepsisters. My fiancé was talking about how cool it is that we're close and asked how old we were when we met. Oldest sister, only 6 months older than me, and I were disagreeing about the timeline of when we met. I remember seeing stepmom around and specifically going to their house. Sister remembers that time, but no way, because they live in that house with their mom and dad. We then realized that their divorces were final with a month or so of each other, and I definitely knew who my stepmom was before that. We all remembered it as both parents were divorced, then met, but now that I'm really putting the pieces together, that isn't the case. I'm also incredibly close with my mom, and she has always hated stepmom, but she played nice for the most part. I always thought she was just jealous of stepmom. We all confronted them together. They just sat wide-eyed surprised we remember all that. And essentially, they didn't go about it the right way, but they loved each other and eventually decided to be together. All of us are freaking furious. I've always idolized my father, and girls look up to their mom as well. I asked my mom about it, and she burst into tears about how she didn't want me to hate my dad. She put on a brave face with the two of them for 20 years now, and had to do it alone. Discussing with my fiancé, I don't want to subject my mother to that on my wedding day. She thinks I'm being extreme. Admittedly, this is new information to me and raw. I do love my dad and my stepmom too, but they lied to me for 20 years essentially. Will I be the a-hole? Edit. I'm a man. Apparently, I'm using the wrong form of fiancé. Also, I haven't mentioned this to either of my sisters, and they're both in the bridal party, but I know the older one was as shocked and angry as me. Younger was too young to really remember her parents together. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. It's your wedding, and therefore your choice who you invite. But I talked to your mom first about it, and really think it over with your fiancé so you don't make a decision you might regret later. You and your stepsisters have a right to be pissed off about this, but uninviting people that you admit to still love about seems to be an overreaction. Something else to remember, they didn't lie to you for 20 years. Their relationships and the issues caused by it had nothing to do with you and your stepsisters. It was their issue. Your mother did the right thing by not destroying your relationship with your father because his infidelity doesn't mean he was a bad parent. That's especially true since you said that you've always idolized him and you're all close. No, when you cheat and have kids, you hurt the kids in their own right. The kids have a right to be upset and work through whatever feelings infidelity brings up. They absolutely did lie to Opie for 20 years. If the kids had known about the cheating, it might have been harder for everybody to play happy family. Doubtless, dad and stepmom knew that it would be harder and wanted to avoid that. They were selfish. They lied. Not the a-hole, but as others have stated, I think you'll regret it, especially seeing as you have such a good relationship with them. This is possibly unorthodox, but you could always ask your mother to be the one that walks you down the aisle, although doing so might create unnecessary drama. That said, she's held onto this burden for years to help preserve your relationship with your father, and I feel compelled to applaud her for that. Regardless of what decisions you make, I hope your wedding day is a happy one. Congratulations. Edit. In all honesty, I just assumed OP was a woman. Sorry about that, OP. I'm a dude, but was already planning on doing a son/mother dance. Thanks for the suggestion though. Might just have my mom escort me down. No a-holes here in the current situation, but be honest with yourself about why you're doing it or for whom. Your mom kept quiet all those years because she didn't want you to hate your dad. She thinks uninviting him from the wedding is extreme. It's not what she wants. If you're angry because you feel lied to, okay. I lean towards thinking it's none of your business, but you feel how you feel, and it's your wedding. But don't hide behind your mom, who's the actual injured party in all this. I fully agree with this. Opie is entitled to his feelings and to invite/uninvite anyone from his wedding that he chooses. That said, this is something that was truly between his parents. They worked hard to co-parent and keep the kids out of their marital affairs. Reddit tends to think cheaters are unworthy of forgiveness or ever moving on. But let's be real. Relationships are sometimes very complicated, and things aren't always as black and white as one side being good and one side being the scum of the earth. Sadly, Opie's mom was the offended party, so I think that her feelings should be considered. She seems to just want to move on without the drama or Opie choosing sides, and this whole mess is probably just making her relieve something she doesn't want to. Now, for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my children's grandparents their other grandchild is not my responsibility? I have 2 sons with my ex-husband. 2.5 years ago, he left me for another woman who was pregnant with his child. Once the divorce was finalized, he lost visitation rights to our children because of an unsuitable home environment, and he refused supervised visitation. My boys never met their half-sibling because of this. Until my ex passed away and his wife dropped off the face of the earth, leaving the child with my ex's parents. I then agreed to facilitate a relationship. The grandparents, however, were not happy with this and wanted me to take in this child and raise them because I am the mother of their siblings, and the child's mother is likely to never come back. They say occasional visits are not good enough. They also say that I could provide a better family structure than they could because they would never grow up doubting they were loved by a parent. The truth is, I could not bring myself to be active in this child's life. It's not the child's fault my ex had an affair, but I would never be able to give them the love I give my boys because they're mixed up in the mess my ex created. And the truth is, I don't want to be this child's mother or love them. I want as much of a clean break from my ex as I can get while still allowing my boys a relationship with their paternal family. The grandparents are now very unhappy with me and try to change my mind, and a few close friends who were supporting me have become divided. One of my oldest friends told me she believes I am doing the wrong thing refusing. She told me my children and this child would be better off if I just embrace the child and learn to love them. She believes it could heal me too. Another very close friend believes I am doing the best thing because if I feel this way, regardless of whether it's right or wrong, it would not be good for the child. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Jesus, I'm so sorry for you. You're right that the child is not your responsibility, and I think you're also right in your decision. If you know you can't give them what they need, then it is probably for the best that you don't take them in. And hell, any of these friends who think you are wrong should feel free to contact the grandparents and offer to take in this kid that they have no connection to. Exactly, no connection would actually be better than the extreme negative connection Opie has with this child. This kid is a constant reminder of one of the biggest betrayals and most painful times in Opie's life. Even if she did agree to take the kid in, they would grow up under the shadow of the pain caused by their father. Even if Opie was a total saint and never once let slip even a shred of her negative feelings in the presence of the kid, an impossible, superhuman feat. The truth will come out eventually, and the kid would be psychologically damaged growing up in that environment. She believes it will heal you too because it will be a nice story. Life is not a story. Not the a-hole. The grandparents raise a cheater and the broken family is proof of that. They just want you to take the kid so that they can pretend all's well that ends well. Agreed, this scenario would make the perfect rom-com movie where things like limited finances, housing, work, and time constraints don't exist. But all of these and more exist in the real world, and I respect Opie for being honest about her limits. Not the a-hole. While it is unfortunate that this child has lost their father and that their mother ran off, this child is not your responsibility. You should never take in a child whom you do not want. Your former in-laws and your friend who think that taking in your husband's affair baby would heal you are the a-holes. Take care of your children and stand your ground. Good luck. Part of me wants Opie to give out contact details of these friends to the ex-in-laws as interested parties, so they know what it is like to have someone try and foist a random child on you. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe. I, 27 female, screamed at my husband, 28 male, over his hobbies, and now he's changed and I don't know how to fix this. Hey everyone, I need some advice about a situation with my husband. I'm 27 female, he's 28 male, and we've been married for 4 years. He has a room where he keeps all his hobbies: sim racing, aviation setups, soccer analysis tools, Lego sets, music production equipment. Basically, it's his sanctuary. He's super analytical and loves writing down and dissecting things, from sports to politics. He's slightly on the spectrum and very introverted, so he doesn't have close friends. I'm really the only person he shares everything with. He's always inviting me into his space to be part of his interests. I love him and appreciate that he wants to include me, but sometimes I just need some time for myself. Recently, I snapped. I yelled at him, saying some hurtful things that I didn't mean, like how his interests bore me, that he needs to get his social life. I'd even questioned why I married him. I regret every word, but my anger got the best of me and I couldn't control it in that moment. Since then, he's completely changed. He stopped spending time in his room, moved to sleeping on a couch, and barely talks to me. He even ignored our usual tradition of watching our home nation soccer team play, something he'd never skipped before. Instead, he was working on his laptop, breaking our no work at home rule. When I asked him about it, he said he didn't care about the game and mentioned that maybe he should be more like his father, who's a workaholic and who my husband idolizes. He even added, I don't blame him for divorcing at that age now. I've apologized multiple times, but he just says, it's okay, maybe you're right, and shuts down any attempts I make to talk about his interests. I'm terrified he's considering divorce. I know I messed up, but I don't know how to rebuild trust and help him feel valued and loved again. I don't want to lose him, but I'm unsure how to approach this and make amends. Any advice? Now for the top advice. You didn't just criticize his hobbies. You degraded him, saying he needs a social life and asking why you married him. Did you even try to talk to him frankly before you snapped? Did you tell him that you needed some space? Or did you just stuff it all down until one day you screamed it all out? Instead of apologizing, I suggest that you see if he's willing to go to couples counseling with you, where y'all can work on communication and trying to move past this incident. Seriously, she literally just told him that they have nothing in common, that he is a bore to her, that they can clash on fundamental levels, like the social thing, and outwardly questioned why she married him in the first place. And now she's surprised he's thinking about divorce? Girl, you are the one who put that idea in his head, and then yelled a laundry list of valid reasons for him to leave you. Honestly, I also wonder why you got married. I hope he does get a social life. Maybe he'll meet someone he actually has something in common with. I have a relative who complained to me that her husband was forever in their garage tinkering on an old car. Apparently, he should have been inside talking to her. I asked whether she'd ever thought of going into the garage with some drinks and a chair and chatting with him and reading. She said no, and then pointed out to her that unlike her first husband, at least she knew where to find him during his leisure time. Her first had several girlfriends. She just looked at me for a minute and then stopped complaining. There is a comfortable chair in their garage now, as well as a television and a small bookshelf. I'm no hero, but 20 years later, they're still happily together. Questioning why you married him is a really awful thing to sling at someone, regardless of anger or honesty. You can talk out what you regret saying, but him pulling away is understandable. Right, I was saying there's no way one can come back from saying stuff like that. That is hurtful, and quite frankly puts off a lot of people. I wouldn't even be surprised if he chooses to move out at some point. He's already isolating himself from her, which is step one. She broke him. It's hard for any man to come back from that. Being truly broken is the worst feeling in the world, and you just feel like you're going through the motions of every day. Every hope, dream, goal, and happiness is gone. It's what I imagine he feels like. Next story. Planning on proposing this weekend, but my 25 male girlfriend, 23 female, gave me an ultimatum to propose. Help? My girlfriend basically told me last night that if she didn't receive a ring by the end of the year, she would break up with me. The problem is, I already have a ring and was planning on proposing on her birthday this weekend. I met my girlfriend in college and we've been together for almost 3 years. This girl is my best friend, and I can't imagine my life without her. I've never felt this way about anyone before. We've talked about getting married and starting a family. The thing is, I've been working on my business and trying to become financially stable to support our future family. My girlfriend knows all of this, which is the crazy part. My girlfriend doesn't have a job currently, and I've been supporting both of us. This isn't a big deal for me since I'm in a position where we can afford to live like this. These past quarters, I've finally started seeing returns from my business. All the hard work I've put in over the past 4 years is starting to pay off. We're on track to have a massive year. My girlfriend has been looking at houses over the past few months, not to buy, but just to see what's out there when we're ready. Everything was set in motion. My girlfriend's birthday is this Sunday, and we're having a party at our place as far as she knows. I had the entire proposal planned out with her best friend. Her best friend was going to bring her to the aquarium where we had our first date. I already talked with the aquarium staff about the proposal. They were going to play our song on the speakers, and I planned to do it in front of the penguin exhibit, her favorite animal. I even hired a professional photographer. I've also already asked her parents for permission to propose. Now I'm in a bad spot. I feel like I'll lose either way. Last night, during dinner, my girlfriend suddenly broke down and started crying. I've never seen her like that before. She told me she doesn't understand why I won't marry her. She said she's been there for me since day one and told me that if I didn't propose by the end of the year, she would leave. At first, I thought maybe she had found out and was messing with me, but I know her really well. Her tears and emotions were genuine. I know her friends are getting engaged and married, and maybe she feels left out or jealous. But I don't want to propose because of an ultimatum. Now I'm not even sure if I want to go through with the proposal on Sunday. All my friends are saying you can't reward this type of behavior, but I'm not sure. I don't know if she just had a breakdown or what. This is the first time I've ever seen her this upset. Are you not sure about doing it this weekend because it will seem forced, or because you no longer are sure you want to marry her? Your answer changes my advice. Yeah, anyone who at 23 is unemployed and living on her boyfriend's dime and then throws an ultimatum about marriage is nuts, honestly. He is barely old enough to propose, and she is not old enough or mature enough to be engaged. 3 years would be a decent time to wait if they were 10 years older, but they are so young. She's lucky he didn't take out the ring and hand it to her and says he's going for a walk. She obviously hasn't discussed this ultimatum idea with her best friend either. Please don't propose this weekend. Give yourself at least a week to think about whether this is what you want for your life. Hold on to the ring, and honestly, if you do decide to propose later, you don't have to do all that fuss. Just give it to her one night after dinner. And if she is upset there's no fuss, tell her you put a lot of effort into it the first time and her ultimatum made you rethink what you wanted. If she's upset there's no fuss after that, it's one more sign maybe she isn't the one. He needs to insist that she works. There is no good reason that she doesn't, and isn't good for either of them to have him financially supporting her. She needs to be gaining work experience, and she needs money to be going toward retirement. Otherwise, in 10 years, he will see half of everything he was going to her, and he will be starting over. That's a bit complicated. Because on one hand, I can understand how you'd want to put things on pause until you can sit down and have a talk about both of your feelings about marriage and engagement timelines. Ideally, it would have been better to do this before she broke down on you, but the second best time is now. On the other hand, there isn't necessarily anything about this sudden ultimatum that necessarily changes your plans. You were planning on proposing to her anyway, well within her timeline expectations, and you could always talk to her later about how you had this proposal planned well before she gave you the ultimatum. In my opinion, have a talk with her as soon as possible about each of your feelings on marriage and wedding timelines, and confirm with her that you're on the same page. Then carry on with the Sunday proposal. Oh, and let us know how it goes. It's also not as if you could throw that entire proposal together in 48 hours with a photographer and everything. And if she thinks so, he's got the receipts. Honestly, bad breakdown, worthy conversation. But not a complete deal breaker if the rest of the relationship is okay. I don't really understand why he wouldn't just tell her it was gonna happen and she shouldn't worry about it while she was crying. Why let her girlfriend got wrong out for the sake of his surprise? Now for the update. I want to thank everyone for their responses and advice. One of the questions I'm getting is why my girlfriend doesn't work. She just graduated last year with a degree in biology. Unfortunately, she's been having a difficult time finding a job because we live in a rural area. She's always there for me when I need her help with my business. Honestly, I've already told her that she doesn't have to work if she doesn't want to. I had a conversation with her best friend last night, and she informed me that she might have said some things to throw my girlfriend off track. I didn't tell her best friend about my girlfriend's breakdown. Since the whole thing happened, my girlfriend has been a bit distant and has been giving me the silent treatment. As of right now, I'm 80% leaning toward going through with the original plan. I still want to marry her, but the ultimatum part is bothering me. Like, how could she say she would leave after everything we've been through together? Her best friend and little sister are flying in tonight for her birthday/proposal on Sunday. 2 of my closest friends, who are basically my brothers, are coming also. The ones you all referring to as idiots. And yes, they are singles. As for why I planned a proposal on her birthday, it's because when her older sister got engaged on her birthday, she told me that's what she wanted. Regarding the ring, I've had it for 2 years already. I bought it when we went to the mall during college and she showed me her favorite ring there. I actually just finished paying off the credit card for it last month. Do I think she's actually going to leave on January 1st? No, I don't think she would actually leave. Knowing her, she might leave for the day, but she'd be right back home before it gets dark. Last story. My 40 female husband, 40 male, has been going to therapy to work on his temper, and his therapist reported him to CPS. He's saying he no longer go to therapy because of this. How do I keep him engaged in the therapy needed to do the work? So me, 40 female, and my husband have been together for about 10 years, married for 5 of them. We have 1 child, 3 male. My husband has always had a short fuse, been argumentative, and struggled with managing his anger. It's taken me a long time to convince him to go to therapy. About a year ago, he finally agreed to start. However, it recently became clear that he hasn't been open and honest with his therapist, and I've continually encouraged him to be transparent so he can address his issues. For reference, he's never hit or hurt me or our son. I describe him more as a yeller, someone who tries to avoid conflict by being loud. This isn't a healthy dynamic for the home, so I've been insistent on him seeking help. In rare instances, he has thrown something, never at me or our son. One of these instances was recent, and I told him he needed to be honest with his therapist to help him understand why this is his reaction and to work on healthier responses. He had a session this week and asked to increase the frequency of his sessions. I was relieved that he was being honest and recognized the need for more than the monthly sessions he had been doing. However, today's CPS left a card on my door and wants to talk to me regarding concerning behavior with Dad. Clearly, I know who made a report, and so does my husband. I've already arranged to meet with CPS. But now, the issue I'm facing is that my husband, who was already distrustful of the system and sensitive to the stigma surrounding it, has become even more distrustful. I'm also feeling frustrated because this specific incident was something I'd consider reportable. He threw my son's Play-Doh into the yard after my son played with it on the deck and refused to clean it up. I'm a PhD clinician, so I'm very familiar with the system and extremely protective of my and my son's safety and well-being. While my husband's temper is a current challenge, he has been actively taking steps to work on it. I love him very much, and I love our family. As long as he's committed to making changes, I've agreed to support him. I've made it clear, though, that I will leave if things don't improve because his temper and unpredictability aren't healthy for our home. Now, he's told me that he's going to stop going to therapy because, in his words, this is what happens when I'm honest in session. Does anyone have advice on how to keep him engaged in therapy? I'm feeling a whole host of emotions, mostly sadness that someone seeking help was reported for an anger outburst, reinforcing his distrust in the system and discouraging him from being honest in his self-work. I'm also frustrated that his therapist, who has repeatedly reminded him they're a mandated reporter, didn't feel the need to tell him they would be reporting this particular disclosure. I know it's not required, but I've always operated on that ethical principle with those I've treated. I feel like without his commitment to getting help and working on this, our marriage will fail. I'm also a PhD clinician, so you are aware that a therapist would not call CPS over some yelling. Also, if it wasn't the therapist, he threw it outside, so maybe the neighbors had enough of him flipping out and yelling at his family that they made a phone call. I mean, if he's been like this always, there are plenty of people probably worried about the kid. This is my thought too. Sounds like neighbors have heard lots of frequent yelling and the sounds of things being thrown. That would be my top bet. The kid is 3 years old. There is no reason to scream at a 3-year-old and throw his toys out in the yard. Kids this age need to be talked to in a normal voice and told what they've done wrong. Maybe he gets a timeout. This guy should not be parenting until he gets his anger under control and learns how to be a father. Yup, and to a little child, that kind of behavior tends to kick their nervous system into fight or flight. A rageful caregiver is an existential threat, and a little toddler's brain/body has no way to know that grown-up, who they rely on for basic needs and love, isn't going to physically hurt or abandon them. In fact, even for adults, dealing with someone who is raging out by yelling and throwing things can have a similar effect. It's just that with kids, the consequences tend to be much deeper as it literally shapes how their psyche and nervous system develop. But for example, in many places it is legally considered physical assault to do things like punch walls, throw objects in rage, get up in someone's face while screaming, etc. Even if you never actually hit the other person. If there is threatening behavior that would cause a reasonable fear that the person may physically attack you, that can legally be considered assault. A person's body might react to those things as imminent threats, so even if the person never hits you and only the wall, it still causes harm. Healthcare professionals are required to make referrals if there is an indication of abuse. So it might not have been the therapist who dropped the dime, if what you are saying is true about his behavior. Yes, you are correct. However, the state I'm in requires a 24-hour response to any report. The response was less than 24 hours after his appointment, and he did talk about yelling and throwing the Play-Doh. So while I am using deductive reasoning, you're correct, it could have come from anywhere. But only 3 people know of this specific incident, and my husband and I are 2 of them. And regardless if it was the therapist or not, I'm just really struggling with him dismissing therapy in response to this, rather than him seeing that this is also a product of his temper. I guess he's feeling like how can he trust someone to help him if they'll just keep turning him over to CPS. I've never really sat on both sides of this, I guess, so I'm just stuck.